Howdy, this is the Views from the Schott podcast. I'm your host, your one and only host, Tim Miller, and today it is Tuesday, January 27th, 2026, and I wish you a very, very, very happy National Plan for Vacation Day. Well, I'm at my wit's end with my furnace, and that's as specific as I'd like to be because I'm not the most handy guy in the world. But that is what caused me to miss a Penn State preview episode. So for that, I am sorry. If you're curious about why you didn't get that, hey, I told people on the Substack, if you're not on the Substack, you gotta be there. Views from the Schott podcast.substack.com. You would have had a heads up there. I'm just saying. I missed you, though. I missed you a lot. I'm excited to be back here today to recap Ohio State's win over Penn State, 84-78 on Monday night. Very cold outside, but warm in the Schott. Ohio State basketball will tell you. The thing they don't tell you is that in order to get out of the cold, you must first get into the cold in order to get into the warmth of the Schott. I don't know how many people were at this game. I don't know if the numbers are here for me to see at this point. Let's see. In the notes section. Is someone lying? We have over 10,000 people at this game. According to the official stats of this game, I'm not sure that I'm buying that. I'm probably selling it. But apparently people were buying Ohio State basketball tickets yesterday. Buckeyes pick up a win over the Nittany Lions. I'm sorry I missed you, but I'm excited to be back here today to recap this one. A win for Ohio State. They do what they needed to do, even with the depth issues, even with more injuries than we could have ever imagined. Ohio State pulls out the win in this one. So on today's show, we will recap key contributors and stats that led to the outcome of this game. And I'll also give my takeaways, including, do I think Ohio State's going to the NCAA Tournament after this game against Penn State? Not just because of this game, but overall, do I think this team is going to the NCAA Tournament? You know what? Quite frankly, I'm not sure if I've decided even to this point. So hopefully I do within the next 25 minutes or so when I get into that topic. But until then, I guess we'll wonder together. Please make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. You need to just know this note. Just because the show shows up wherever you get your podcasts doesn't mean you're subscribed. You got to make sure you're actually subscribed to the show. Just because the algorithm brings it to you doesn't mean you're subscribed. I appreciate you, though. If you are subscribed, follow on all the socials. You know the deal. So I guess we start with this game talking about the availability report. When I received this availability report 3 hours before the game, I was surprised. Look, you may come to know me at this point as the one who knows a whole lot about Ohio State basketball, which may be true. I had no idea this was coming. I was under the impression I knew Bruce would be fine, and I said that to our insider subscribers on the Substack. I let them know, I think, Sunday that or Saturday morning, the day after the Ohio State-Michigan game, that Bruce would be good to go. Tilly expected to be fine as well. Well, Christoph Tilly practiced over the past couple of days. He participated in the shoot-around, and I can tell you that there were members of the team, i.e. players, who expected Christoph Tilly to play. And when they saw that Christoph Tilly wasn't playing, they said, what the heck? Why is he not playing? He was in the shoot-around. He's got to be playing, right? This is a mistake. And I had to let them know. I don't believe this is a mistake. I don't think Tilly's going. And then you see Matthew Grujitek. He's not playing as well. And then Gabe Cupps out of nowhere is not playing as well. I had no idea any of this was going down, hand up. Sorry, not that I missed it, but I didn't know. It wasn't shared with me. And that's okay. That's totally fine. I don't blame anyone, but I didn't know this was happening. So when the availability report came out and you see what's going on, that Ohio State is going to have a total of 9 players, one of which wasn't even on scholarship last year. That's all you got. Well, it's a good thing that you had a winless and limping Penn State Nittany Lions team coming into Columbus. Now, there were a lot of big games that went on last night. You got BYU and Arizona. Of course, Duke picks up a big win over Louisville. If you ask me, I don't know. Penn State was one of the most heavily favored teams to make the college football playoff, and Ohio State beat them last night. And Duke, the biggest win of the night, crushing Louisville. I don't know. Louisville once had a player who snapped his leg during my family's Easter get together. And for that reason, I don't think that we can really consider Louisville to be that legitimate. So I think this Ohio State win, it's the biggest one of the night on Monday, regardless of the depth, regardless of the fact that you win by just 6 against a bad Penn State team. This was a game that you absolutely could not afford to lose. And of course, we know now Ohio State did not lose this game. So I check it off. Good win for Ohio State. Now I'll get into a bunch of thoughts on the actual outcome of this game, but we got to figure out how we got there first. So let's get into that first. Talking about our friend John Mobley Jr. Some call him Junie. Others call him the best shooter in America. Others call him Jonathan. We call him John Mobley Jr. on this show. 25 points in this game, 7 of 14 shooting, 5 of 11 from the three-point line. He piles on 5 assists. He's perfect from the free throw line with 6 made there as well. John Mobley Jr. is playing the best basketball that he has played as an Ohio State Buckeye, and it probably couldn't come at a better time than now, where Ohio State is not necessarily in must-win mode every single game, contrary to what fans would say who are chronically online. This was a can't-lose spot for Ohio State. Now, I had someone on Spotify actually reach out. They commented after an episode and said, what's the difference between a must-win and a can't-lose? And my definition is this. A must-win is a game that if you do not win, you are eliminated from contention of making the NCAA tournament. Now, for a lot of teams, that happens never. For a lot of other teams, that happens sometimes in February or in January. If you're Penn State, year after year at this point, unfortunately for them, it may come when you get to the NCAA tournament. Last year for Ohio State, they were in must-win territory from the Iowa game to the end of the year, which was the Iowa game that Ohio State would go on to lose. That eliminated them from NCAA tournament contention. Had they won that game, would they have been in necessarily? No, but that's the difference between a must-win and a can't lose. A must-win, if you lose a game, you're done. You're not going dancing. However, a can't lose is this is a game that you cannot afford to lose. It looks really bad on the resume if you lose it. It doesn't mean you're eliminated from going to the NCAA tournament. It just means it's going to be a lot harder for you to get there. That's what I label the home game against Minnesota and this home game against Penn State. It's a quad 3 win for Ohio State. It's always going to be a quad 3 win for Ohio State, but you can't afford to take this loss. And January's big for Ohio State. I said that this entire season, how big this month was going to be, because the Buckeyes needed to stack some wins. And that's what they're doing at this point. And it's thanks in large part to John Mobley Jr. He now reaches his career high 4 straight game, scoring 20 points or more. In the past 4 games, he's shooting 33 of 64 from the field. In 4 games, 64 field goal attempts. He's 20 of 43 from the three-point line. That is impeccable accuracy given the amount of volume John Mobley Jr. has had over the past 4 games. He's shooting, and he's making. And Bruce Thornton, another quiet game for him. He scores 9 points in this one. He did have 5 assists, 9 points, 4 of 6 from the field. It was really John Mobley Jr. leading the way here for Ohio State. And without John Mobley Jr., I don't know if Ohio State even wins this game. He was that good for the Buckeyes, and he was a main source of offense for Ohio State. You did have some help, like I said, from Bruce Thornton. Amari Bynum had a good game scoring in this one. Devin Royal added some scoring. Taison Chatman really good off the bench as well. But John Mobley Jr. was excellent in this game. He's now been excellent for Ohio State over the past 4. And if he continues this play, the ceiling for John Mobley Jr., it is nearly unmatched across all other shooting guards in the Big Ten. If you get a hot John Mobley Jr. on any given night, you have a chance to win any game because of the volume and the efficiency he can shoot with from deep. Man, he was really good for Ohio State in this one, leading the way for the Buckeyes. Next player we got to talk about here, it's Taison Chatman. This is a player that fans have been clamoring for more playing time, that others, not as specific as I'd like to be, have been clamoring for him to get more playing time as well. And when the availability report comes out and Taison Chatman sees, and the rest of us see, Gabe Cupps is not going to play, we all know Taison Chatman's going to get a lot of minutes in this one. Taison Chatman in this game, he plays 17 minutes. I assume that would be the most that he's played in a game this season, and probably the most that he's played in a game over his career. Let's take a look just to be certain. Where are you, Taison? You're all the way at the bottom here because your name starts with a T. Game recaps, courtesy of College Basketball Analytics. The most minutes he's played in a game this year, 13 against App State, 10 against Mount St. Mary's. Obviously, both of those were blowouts. So real live basketball, Taison Chatman gets the most minutes he's played in a game this season, and I would assume the most he's gotten in his career as you think back to that freshman year that he had. Taison Chatman, 11 points. He goes 4-6 from the field. He had one miss in the second half that it's his fault because he missed a shot, but I also don't really blame on him. He got a pass down at his shins. Then he had to fire quickly from deep. The corner doesn't go in. But all in all, it was a good game from Taison Chatman. The nice cut there in the first half that led to him dunking like a baby looking up to mama, saying uppies, uppies. That was Taison Chatman on that dunk. The nice feed from Amari Bynum. Shout out Christine, by the way. Taison Chatman, a really, really good game in this one. Now, as we compare his play to Gabe Cupps, I think it goes without saying. Gabe Cupps, remember, he had 9 points against Oregon. Outside of that, he had 2 games with 5 points scored. And in every other game this season for Gabe Cupps, he scored 3 points or less while playing 14.7 minutes per game. Taison Chatman, on the other hand, in this one, 25.6 points per 40 minutes. Gabe Cupps is at 5. Gabe Cupps has scored 5 points per 40 minutes this season. Not per game, per 40 minutes for Gabe Cupps. Absolutely no offensive production out of Gabe Cupps. Even looking at his shooting metrics for Ohio State so far this year, again, I've shared this before. Ohio State didn't expect him to light it up from deep. They didn't expect him to be a huge offensive producer off the bench, but they expected more from him than they've gotten. 23.5% from the three-point line for a player who is playing, again, 14.7 minutes per game. You're getting more than enough minutes so far this year for Gabe Cupps to make some kind of impact for Ohio State. It's not been a drop in the bucket. Whereas with Taison Chatman on the floor, at least in this game, an extended playing time for the first time all year, Taison Chatman produced offensively for Ohio State. I think Taison Chatman also, he opens up the floor for a player like John Mobley Jr., for Bruce Thornton, some additional spacing opportunities afforded because he can hit the three-pointer at times. We've seen him miss some ugly shots. Even against Michigan, he missed some ugly shots. But at least in this game with extended minutes and the opportunity and ability to warm up and get into the flow of the game, Taison Chatman did do just that in this one. So at this point, I don't know why you wouldn't want more of Taison Chatman after this. I think it's not a hard argument. It's not a hard sell for me to make to you because you've probably been asking why Taison Chatman isn't playing at all this year. At this point, I don't know what benefit you get out of more Gabe Cupps and less Taison Chatman. We know what we know about Gabe Cupps. That's not going to change for him offensively. Whereas with Taison Chatman, what you got from him, again, it's a limited sample size, but he was really, really good in this one. And we've seen that. We've seen glimpses of what Taison Chatman could be offensively. The breakdowns happen defensively, and sure, there's turnovers here and there. But after this one, you would be hard-pressed to find someone who would say, you know what? I think those minutes should stay the same for Taison Chatman. Once Gabe Cupps is healthy, then no problem. No big deal for Ohio State. I dropped my pen, and I need to make a note here, if you don't mind. Thanks. Thank you for allowing me to make that note. It's a note for the end of the show, but I'll bring it up. So, Taison Chatman looked good in this one. Taison Chatman looked good for Ohio State. I think Ohio State at this point, you can objectively say you need more Taison Chatman and probably a little less of Gabe Cupps moving forward. Ohio State had 14 assists on 30 field goals made in this game. Assist rate was a huge issue against Michigan. I can tell you that that was something that someone around the program mentioned to me. I always say around, not to be too specific. You can glean of that what you'd like to glean, but was told that that was an issue. That was something that was mentioned and that needed to be improved upon as they move forward this year, going in against this game against Penn State. And they have 14 assists on 30 made field goals. Already mentioned John Mobley Jr., his assist numbers. Bruce Thornton also had 5 assists. Amari Bynum contributed a couple as well. You had a couple other buckets that were either like hockey assist type or not credited assists, but maybe could have, or you just find a guy who's open, who finds a guy who's open, who can drive and then make a shot and maybe spin move, drop step, whatever the case may be at the rim to where you're not credited with that assist necessarily. But Ohio State looked a lot more crisp, especially in the first half. First half offensively for Ohio State, I thought they looked really, really good. And the assist rate, it improved from that game against Michigan. Overall, Ohio State's not been bad in terms of assist rate coming into this game for the Buckeyes. They entered with a 54.1% assist rate, which isn't bad whatsoever. You'd like to see that number always be probably above 50%. They're a little below in this one, but still moving the ball, crisp ball movement. Ohio State looked good overall offensively, and it led to good shooting metrics for the Buckeyes as well. They shot 56% from the field in this one. The three-point shooting was what it was, 35%, not a lot of volume. That's Ohio State basketball this year. You're used to that. But all in all, good assist day for Ohio State. Penn State scored 24 paint points in this game. The paint D for Ohio State, it continues to be a strength. And this is without Brandon Knoll. And now, at least in this game, it's without Christoph Tilley. You look at Ivan Nagovin, thanks to his size, it makes it really, really hard to score in the paint. Nagovin had 2 blocks in this game. Yeah, he did foul out, but when you swat 2 shots and you're 7'2" or 3 or whatever he is, and you foul out and you have 8 points, you have some up and you have some down with Nagovin. Overall, I thought it was a pretty impressive game from him. Pretty impressive. Not great, not totally impressive, but some good moments mixed in with some bad. The paint defense for Ohio State was really good. The 2-3 zone, the emphasis there is keeping the ball out of the middle, keeping the ball out of the paint. Once you get the ball into the middle, it's really hard to defend at that point, but Ohio State was really, really good defending the paint in this one. Penn State was only 6 of 12 on layup attempts as well, which is not good whatsoever. So Ohio State did a great job putting the clamps on in the paint in this one. Ohio State forced 18 turnovers in this game. Penn State suffered from a 27.3 turnover rate in this game. That is absolutely awful. Slap the TV-MA logo on the screen. That's bad offense from Penn State in this one. John Mobley Jr., Bruce Thornton, Amari Bynum, they all had 3 steals apiece in this one. It led to 12 points off turnovers, which certainly is not great given that you forced 18 turnovers. Ohio State could have blown the doors off Penn State in this one had they scored off turnovers more often, but you take away possessions. This is why if I were a coach, which I never will be, but if I were, I would emphasize turnovers. I would take the risk at the expense or the I guess a reward at the expense of the risk, because I've said it before in the show, it's a net +2 advantage. When you take away a possession from your opponent and you add it to yourself, we know class, what's 1 plus -1? It's 2. Do the math, folks. It is. So when you can add a possession for yourself and you can take one away, that's huge. And Ohio State, I think this is the number that you can look at John Mobley Jr., you can look at what Taison Chatman did, whatever the case may be. I think this is truly the stat that won Ohio State the game. Penn State shot nearly as well as Ohio State. They made more 3-pointers in the Buckeyes in this one. I think this was the deciding factor in the game. It's now 2 games in a row where Ohio State has had noteworthy numbers, forcing turnovers and forcing a really solid turnover rate as well defensively. So that was big for Ohio State in this one. Ohio State got crushed on the glass in this one. The Buckeyes had 21 total rebounds, not in the half, 21 total rebounds across the entire game. That feels wrong, and I've refreshed, and I'm making sure that I'm not looking at like first half numbers compared to second half numbers or anything like that. Ohio State got destroyed on the glass in this one, 31-21. You look at Ivan Uric, who had 14 rebounds for Penn State. He was huge for the Nittany Lions in this one. Reed had 5. Several other players had a couple. For Ohio State, Amari Bynum had 5 rebounds. Outside of that, no one else had more than 3. So not a great game on the glass from Ohio State. But when Nigovan, when he fouls out, when your next best rebounder is Amari Bynum or Devin Royal or probably Bruce Thornton, technically, the numbers would say you have no Christoph Tilley, you have no Brandon Knoll, makes it hard to rebound. So the fact that Ohio State was minus 10 on the glass in this game and still won, that's good. Takeaways in this one for Ohio State. I tell you what, this was an important win for the Buckeyes. I think there's a lot of factors that went into this one. I think potentially the biggest was the fact that Christoph Tilley didn't play when he practiced for Ohio State, when he participated in the shooting round. And like I said at the top of the show, there were players within the locker room who thought Christoph Tilley was going to play. They thought Christoph Tilley was going to start in this game for Ohio State. And then when he doesn't, I mean, think about Ivan Nigovan. He's now being told he's going to get his first start as a Buckeye. How does that change your mentality if you're him? How does that change your mentality if you're Puff Johnson, knowing that you're going to get a few more minutes in this game? I mean, this was a really important win for Ohio State because you look at optically before you even step out on the floor, they're super thin. You don't have Tilley. You have 14 players on the roster. You don't have Knoll. Braylon Nash is who he is. You don't have Josh Ojawuna as well. That brings you down to 11. Now you lose Cup, screw Tilley. Now you're down to 8. You had Puff, so I guess you're at 9, really, but kind of at 8 because Braylon Nash is also included in that as a walk-on. Not saying anything bad about him, but what he was last year was a walk-on. He hasn't played any meaningful minutes for Ohio State so far this year. So I don't care who you play. When you're that thin and you still win a game in conference, that's really, really important. And then Nigovan fouls out. You have 0 centers left. And then you also have the fact that you're dealing with how thin you are. You're dealing with the fouling out of Nigovan. You're dealing with it being a conference game. The weirdness of the level 3 snow emergency to level 2. And are fans even going to show up for this game? What's that going to look like? You deal with all those different factors. And add on top of that, Ohio State at the half is up 50-32. The Buckeyes got outscored by 12 in the second half. Things got really, really tight. Ohio State's lead in the second half got all the way down to 1 point. You look at all the weirdness and wackiness, that could have been the point for Ohio State where they throw in the towel and they get weak and they decide to not play physically and they just kind of give up. But they didn't in this one and they won. And I get it. Penn State doesn't have a single win in Big Ten play this year. I'm not saying that type of win is impressive. I'm not saying it's impressive to beat Penn State by 6. But given all the outside optics, there's going to be box score scanners who look at this game and say, ugh, Ohio State only won by 6 against Penn State. Ugh, Penn State has a goose egg in Big Ten wins this year. That's not good. That doesn't look good for the Buckeyes. And you know what? The predictive metrics, net, Ken Palm, whatever, they're not going to like the outcome of this game. But if you watch what actually happened on the court and you look at the optics outside of the game, I can't complain. A win is a win, is how I see this game for Ohio State. It's a quad 3 win, but you just needed to survive through the thinness that you've got. Puff Johnson, we'll talk about him. I don't know when else to fit him in, so I guess we'll fit him in now. So he scored for the first time for Ohio State, and he was the only bench player not named Taison Chatman to score in this game. He did have one horribly ugly turnover. The announcer, I don't know which, but one of the two said, essentially, that's what happens when you don't play college basketball for a year. I had kind of the same remarks after the Michigan game where it just looked like, man, there's a lot of rust still to be shaken off for Puff Johnson. But look, he plays with physicality, extremely, extremely quick to trigger defensively. There was one time where he jumped out in a passing lane and the opposing player for Penn State just had to jog away. Well, Puff just denied that pass. I guess I better get out of here. He wants to box out. He wants to defend. Maybe a little bit too much vigor at times defensively from Puff Johnson, but you need that. You need that energy, especially off the bench for Ohio State, where Taison Chatman, not known as a defender, Gabe Cupps, known as a defender, but I really can't argue at this point that he's been an exceptional defender even for Ohio State. I think he's gotten beat off on the ball at times. There are players who are known defensively for Ohio State and maybe don't produce at the level that you assume they are just because they don't provide much offensively. But uh, Puff Johnson, he's going to bring something to that bench for Ohio State that not really any other players can bring. And he brought that in this one. His offensive game was never going to be his calling card for Ohio State, coming in and filling in at this point for Ohio State in the final couple months of the season. But what he brought defensively for Ohio State, I thought was good, and he'll continue to get better. And as I record, this is a Taison Chatman tweet from Ohio State Hoops. Be advised. People are talking. You know what else people are talking about at this point in the year is if Ohio State is going to go to the NCAA tournament. So I posted a poll on Twitter, and we will see what the final results will be of this poll. But I will pull up this poll right now and see. So right now, there's just over 100 votes on this. I just posted it. I mean, I'm recording on Monday night. I know I told you it's Tuesday. I kind of lied about that. Sorry. So I said 20 games in, call your shot. Will the Ohio State Buckeyes make the NCAA tournament? To the tune of 72% to 28%, we have a yes vote here. Now, Ohio State fans may be biased, but here's what I'll say to that. For every biased Ohio State fan who says, yeah, we're going to the tournament no matter what, there's probably 2 or 3 biased Ohio State fans who say, fire Jake Diebler, Colin White sucks, this team will never go anywhere with Jake Diebler, joke of a program, taking Penn State and the points. Oh my gosh. I'm a genius for that. I'm so happy that I bet my money, my hard-earned money against my favorite basketball team, as if that's a flex. There are 2 to 3 of those for everyone who's biased. So that said, it's now time for me to give my take, okay, on if Ohio State is an NCAA tournament. I'm ready to call my shot right now. Is Ohio State an NCAA tournament team? Well, here's where Ohio State needs to go. According to me, my opinion, Ohio State needs to get to 19 wins by the end of the regular season to have a more than 50% chance to make it in the NCAA tournament. That doesn't mean that they're in. It doesn't mean that they can punch their ticket or anything like that. But I think if you get to 19 wins, if you get to 19 and 15 at that point, is that right? No, that's not right, is it? What's the math? Hey, pause for a second. Is it 19 and 12? Am I just straight up stupid? 31 minus 19 is 12. I don't know, man. I don't know. If you can get to 19 and 12 by the end of the year and you head into the Big Ten tournament and you get a 1 win there, you're definitely in the NCAA tournament. But if you can get to the Big Ten tournament with 19 wins at the end of the regular season, I think that gives you a more than 50% chance to make it to the NCAA tournament. Given that you have 14 wins right now, you have 1 quad 1 win, which is over Northwestern, depending on which morning you refresh the net at this point, because Northwestern goes up and then they go down. And we just hope that at some point Northwestern will stick as a quad 1 win. I don't know if that's going to be the case. What Ohio State does have at this point, or what they don't have, I guess I should say, they have 0 losses in the quad 3 and quad 4. That is absolutely, it's so important for Ohio State. Without those top key premium wins in the quad 1, to not have any losses in quad 3, quad 4, that's going to be able to put you up above a couple teams on the bubble who can't say that for themselves. So as you look at the schedule right now, you look at Maryland, you look at going to Penn State. Both of those games have got to be wins for Ohio State. Most likely both going to be quad 3, even Penn State on the road. So that gets you to 16. We know Ohio State plays Michigan at home. We know Ohio State plays Purdue at home. I count those as losses. Now, when the Purdue game comes around, I'm going to predict Ohio State to win. Okay, just be advised on that. But let's say you're at 16. You kind of count the losses that should be losses. Ohio State hasn't beaten a team in the AP Top 25 so far this year, so we expect them to beat the teams that they should beat. That said, at home against Indiana, senior day, for Bruce Thornton, can you win that game? I'm going to say yeah. I think that you can win that game. That should get you to 17. So you need 2 more wins. Home against Wisconsin, at Wisconsin. Can you split that? If so, you're at 18. Can you win at USC and get to 19? And then the rest of the schedule for Ohio State, again, I mentioned Michigan. I mentioned Purdue. You've also got Virginia in there, a neutral site game. I think Virginia is really, really good. You got Michigan State. That is in East Lansing. That's going to be a tough one. You got to play at Iowa. That game will be tough too. But is a path there for Ohio State to get to 19 wins? I think I just painted the picture for you. You got to beat Maryland. You got to beat Penn State. I don't see that being an issue. I think they beat Indiana at home on senior day. And then I think that you can get 2 wins in out of any of these 3 between USC and then home Wisconsin, away Wisconsin. I think Ohio State can do it. I think Ohio State at this point, and this entire season, I mean, it's been a downward trajectory, a downward line graph of my confidence in Ohio State to make the NCAA tournament. But at this point, sitting at 14-6, looking at where their resume stands right now, looking at having Puff Johnson, for example, added to the roster, I think that really helps. Now, here's my biggest question. I can tell you Matthew Grugic, he's got a wrist injury. He hasn't been practicing. I don't know how long he's going to be out. Quite frankly, unfortunately, it doesn't matter because he hasn't played for Ohio State meaningful minutes this year for the Buckeyes. As much as I'd love for him to play meaningful minutes, he hasn't so far this year. So I don't think that that's a part of the equation. Gabe Cupps, Christoph Tilley, that is a part of the equation. Look, Christoph Tilley participated in the shoot-around for Ohio State before the game against Penn State. I don't think that's long-term. I don't know what's going on with Gabe Cupps. I don't know if at this point Jake Diebler said something in his post-game presser that would give us some kind of indicator. I'll still try to check on that regardless. But as long as Cupps is fine, and as long as Christoph Tilley is fine, look, Josh Ojawuna, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't think there's any chance he plays this year. Brandon Knoll, I don't expect him to come back this year either. So the depth is not great, but with Puff Johnson now, the depth is a little better than it would be without him, obviously. So that said, where Ohio State stands right now, I do think that I can see 19 wins. And the other thing as well, this tweet got a little bit of traction today from Ant Wright. You know of him if you don't follow him already. He posted, here's what the Big Ten tournament bracket would look like today. Ohio State would be an 8 seed. As an 8 seed, if they were to win, they would then go on to play Nebraska in the quarterfinal round of the Big Ten tournament. Now, is that going to stay? Is Nebraska still going to be the number 1 seed? I don't know. Is Ohio State going to be 8 seed? Probably not. But in that first round, you're looking at probably, even if you get bumped down, because you got to be in the top 8 to get the, what is this at this point? A double bye, a triple bye, however you count this. It's a double bye still, because every team that makes it to the Big Ten tournament, even if Ohio State drops down to 9, you're going to play one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. Right now, that would be Oregon or Maryland. I think you can trust winning that game. And then you get the chance to play the 9 or the 7 or the 6. I don't think that necessarily matters. I don't think there's a huge difference between UCLA and Wisconsin. Purdue, I don't really want to play, but it is what it is. You can't control that. If you just get that first win, even if it is a quad 3 win, if you get that first win against whether it be Oregon, Maryland, Northwestern, Penn State, however that breaks down, maybe it's Washington, maybe it's Rutgers, maybe it's Minnesota, any of those wins helps. So I think even if you are not playing in that round 3 of the Big Ten tournament, you're playing in that second round on Wednesday, that's a game that you should win. Ohio State has beaten teams they're supposed to beat so far this year. So even if you enter at 18-14 or 18-13, sorry, heading into the Big Ten tournament, if you get to 18-15, I can't do math. Oh my gosh. What's wrong with me? It would be either 19-12 or it would be 18-13. Okay? Can we agree on that? If they enter at 18-13, for example, is that folks, I'm sorry. I don't know what's wrong with my brain. 18-13 is what it would be. I'm embarrassed. And I clipped this out, but I can't do it. I can't bring myself to do it. I want to be raw and unfiltered to you. You go into the NCAA or Big Ten tournament at 18-13. You win, you get to 19-13. You lose, you get to 19-14. I still think you're in the NCAA tournament. So even if You get to the Big Ten tournament at 18-13. As long as you win a game in the Big Ten tournament, I think you're in. But this depends on the availability of Gabe Cupps. It depends on the depth this team has moving forward. As it stands right now, I'm predicting Ohio State to make it to the NCAA tournament. And that's the first time I've done this entire year. So that's kind of big news, I would say, on the Use in the Shot podcast. Alrighty. So what does Ohio State do next? They go to Wisconsin. They do that on Saturday. So I would expect a show Thursday or Friday this week. I promise. I'm going to have plenty of time this time. There won't be any shoveling to do. There won't be any, well, even if there is a furnace, that's just giving me fits, folks. Even if the furnace is doing that to me, I've got plenty of time to put together a show for you. So I will preview Ohio State against Wisconsin. Big game for Ohio State. Road game for Ohio State. If you can pick that one up, you're still, or actually, this is going to be a home game for Ohio State. If you can pick up that home win, it's huge. It's absolutely huge for the Buckeyes for them to be able to do that. So we'll see. But appreciate you being here today. Buckeyes, they won a can't-lose game. They did what they had to do, which is pick up the green W. They did that against Penn State in this one. So thanks so much for being here today. I appreciate you watching, listening. Like the video on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. 5-star review. Blah, blah, blah. Until next time, I shut up before you shut me off. Go Bucks.